doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages that we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, wherever you are getting at us, being able to make the points that you want to and get into the discussion here is the right place for you, whether it's be just on your own or actually contributing and bringing it up to, again, you don't have to, but if you want to add your 2 cents or dropping a dime, as I guess we're getting to now with the inflation concerns, in any case, however works for you, that's the right place for you to be as we continue our mission, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., to have live local talk radio here in the borderland and to get into the issues that really matter to y'all, to me, to the people that live here and those kind of things, and a lot to talk about today, certainly. More election stuff here. Realize we didn't actually get into, and even more updates now coming out of today involving the district attorney's office for El Paso, as we already have Eric von Holstein-Rathlau chiming in over on the social media. Good afternoon to you as well. Peace sign today, apparently we're doing, and good afternoon to you as well, Austin Redfearon and Sean Gardner. Thank you for tuning in there and adding your commentary as we come in. I mean, salutations are kind of commentary as well, because it's definitely a good afternoon. I hope it is for you as well. And we got a lot to talk about today. As I was mentioning, updates, substantive updates, and things on the move whenever it comes to the district attorney's office and some of the situations involving it. We'll delve a little bit further into that, including an official response from the actual district attorney herself on what is going on with some of these recent cases, or the one actually now going to be moving forward for her removal, which is a very interesting circumstance. The fact that we're going to be moving towards such a, again, not that this is the focus of it, but I can't get past how the drama involving this. I mean, the fact that it's going to a court trial. When's the last time, even with some of the, major, other statewide and other states, but across the nation, recall efforts, it has never quite reached that level of, again, the best phrase I can come up with is drama. If anyone else has a better one for me there, please let me know. So some of those responses there that we also do have. And some responses also coming out from those in the community about Yvonne Rosales, but I'll have the response there. So we also have Glenn Stewart chiming in with us over on the Facebook page. Good afternoon to you as well, with an exclamation point this time. Also, we have some more, I guess, just call it interesting things in going and involving the elections, as there has been more kerfuffles and brouhahas over the legalities being violated in some cases, including the Cañutillo Independent School District, their superintendent saying that the candidates or that those against the bond are violating election law, but then also some more on the local fundraising. And Keith Walden saying, starting to sound a little more like a 19th century city politics. Tammany Hall come to mind here or anything like that? Yeah, again, just the circumstances, the events happening in the courtroom. I mean, that's just, geez. Eric von Holstein-Rathlau asking specifically, or Eric for short, if they remove the DA, will another election be held, or does the governor appoint the new DA? So there's actually an intervening question before that point, because as has also been pointed out, there is, of course, the removal effort and this trial, that which you're getting to there, essentially. But if we goes before that point, because this is not even just related to, well, what's going to be happening with the outcome of this trial, there's the potential for injunctions to be entered into the meantime to see her no longer able to hold the office at this moment. So that's it's a more complicated question than I think you intended for it to be, because the fact of the matter is that is going to be something decided by, I do believe, the court in this case, a judge based out of Odessa. Still not entirely sure if that's going to be therefore tried in Odessa, outside of at least the immediate local area, or if not sure if it's outside the 34th Judicial District for that matter, or if it will just be an outside judge doing it in a local courtroom. More questions to be had there, as also a mare's nest, another way Keith Wildon's putting it there. Interesting phrasing to go with there. Again, sticking with the 19th century phrase. By the way, saw you in that commercial recently. Looked pretty good in that, showing off the 19th century perspective there. Yeah, I caught you in that. Don't worry about it. As we also have Eric McNabb chiming in, disagreeing already with the discussion we're having before we've really even gotten into it. So let me know what you think about the actual points here are, if you choose to do so. Accusing there to be larger conspiracies essentially at play within this. Again, I'll love to see what that is actually going to involve. But in any case, also getting into our election coverage, interview today with another one of the City Council District Number 1 candidates, Brian Kennedy, seeking to take that seat in this upcoming election. And so we get into it with him. Some slight changes with that interview today as we encountered some video problems, but still have the full thing for you as our election interviews continue to go just ever way too long here. Sorry, Keith, didn't mean to call you out there, but definitely shout out in the bar we're sitting at right now. Hey, that's Keith. I know that guy. Anyway, oh my God, he's on TV. And RJ asking and saying specifically, it's time for the DA's office to hand it over to the Texas AG and the feds. This is becoming an embarrassment for El Paso. I seen a mile away. And Marky Mandingo saying, my uncle has a ranch in Fabens. I love red meat. I guess we're talking about the red meat segment from this. So something that we did not at all get to yesterday, as we got into many other topics here, is actually the response that has come out from the district attorney herself, Yvonne Rosales, in response to the fact that this is now going to be moving towards a jury trial. Of course, want to make sure we had this on the show here, or more specifically, a spokesperson with the El Paso District Attorney's Office provided the following statement to our news partners over there at KFOX 14. While the county attorney's action is something we do not agree with, the District Attorney's Office is not surprised by her decision. It is saddening that El Paso County, and the families we represent will now have to endure more disruption amidst an important time for the DA's office to serve justice throughout the community. Our community, rather. My loyalty and focus will remain on improving the criminal justice system and the DA's office as a whole, despite this political distraction. Citizens of El Paso, the voting public at large, and any current and future elected officials should be on alert for these types of political attacks. The people of El Paso County made their voices heard and voted for a change in the DA's office after having the same administration for 28 years. Know that I will continue to fight for every citizen and family in our community and ensure that due process and justice is served. So that's, of course, the response coming is specifically from the district attorney herself, again, through a spokesperson. But one update coming today that, again, from our news partners there at KFOX 14, El Paso Assistant District Attorney withdraws from the Walmart shooting case amid the DA office crisis. In a letter, El Paso Assistant District Attorney Curtis Cox sent a letter to the judge presiding over the case saying he is withdrawing from the Walmart shooting case. In the letter sent to Judge Sam Medrano, and it's now, of course, part of the court record, quote, while it is not the practice of assistant district attorneys in the 34th Judicial District to withdraw from specific cases, I am hereby doing so in regard to the above referenced matter effective immediately. And as noted further by news partners there, no reason is being given on this. Among other things to be noted as part of this, there is the gag order in place for that case. So whether or not there was really the liberty to be able to do so, even if it is going into the court record, I guess is a further point to be made. But in any case, these are just a couple of the kerfuffles involving that office and involving the evolving situation there. And I mean, that's another point being made there about being booted out or not. And yeah. So, I mean, there definitely was an election. That much is undeniable, in which Yvonne Rosales was selected. So don't think this is so much a move on that is what seems to be like. Again, we've had previously on the show Omar Carmona, the local defense attorney, who filed that removal petition. Again, petition in the petition the court sense, not the sign a petition, because we've talked about a lot of those as well. But so it's slightly different sense in that. But still, the fact that it's moving forward, and again, we have, of course, made a previous invitation to the district attorney herself to come on this show and talk about it from her perspective, but we've heard from spokespersons as well that likely won't be happening until, well, these legal issues are concluded, including some of the gag orders and related. So, again, this is, well, quite the evolving situation, and we're, of course, going to keep our eye on it. But in the meantime, we do have other elections going on, and we will keep talking about those. and doing our best to make sure that we keep you all abreast of it. So talking more about City of El Paso District 1 today. Again, going to be taking that first break of the hour right now, coming back and talking with Brian Kennedy on his perspective and policies there. Don't have the video for the first segment due to an error on our end, but we will have it up for the second part there. So however you're tuning in, you're more than welcome to be along with us here for, again, Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Taking that break, coming out of this break, keeping those comments going on online if you want to chime in over on the social media, as well as phone lines a little bit later in the show as we usually do, but all that and more to come. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
El Paso freeways are crash-free right now. No major delays either. Lower Valley on 375 westbound at Zaragoza. Disabled semis blocking the right shoulder. An accident reported Gateway South at Sun Valley Drive. And slow traffic on the 10 eastbound from the state line down to Las Muchas with 9-minute delays. And just a heads up, a wind advisory out tonight till 10 p.m. for El Paso. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
News Radio 690 KTSM and Scott Heating and Cooling want to provide a local veteran with a heating and cooling system upgrade. Tell us about a deserving veteran you know who would benefit from a free new refrigerated AC unit. Who are they? How have they positively impacted you, their families, and the community? Nominate a veteran you know today at KTSMradio.com.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
If you run a business, you might feel that advertising is more confusing than ever, but it doesn't have to be. At iHeart, we're built to help your business. With 9 out of 10 Americans listening to us, just like you are now, we can give you access to your next customers and the tools, strategies, data, and creative to reach them. We're America's #1 audio company, and it all starts from a conversation. So let us help you adjust your plans to improve your business and costs. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
When it comes to our judges, experience and qualifications matter. Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals graduated in the top 10% of his law school class. He practiced law for 29 years before coming to the Court of Appeals, where he has been for the last 8 years. The only candidate in this race who is board certified in civil appellate law. A principled conservative who fairly applies the law as written. We need to keep Justice Jeff Alley at the 8th Court of Appeals.
Political ad paid for by Justice Jeff Alley in accordance with the voluntary limits of the Judicial Campaign Fairness Act.
For more than 20 years, the Window Depot has provided the best price and the biggest inventory on in-stock vinyl windows. And now, the Window Depot is more than a window store, offering homeowners and contractors a one-stop warehouse offering interior and exterior doors, granited quartz countertops, in-stock cabinetry, and skylights to finish your project. Their team of professionals will help with everything from free kitchen design to custom orders from leading manufacturers like Milgard and Geldwin. Order online or find a location near you at thewindowdepot.com.
Here's a message just for the attorneys out there. So you passed the bar, joined a firm, or even built your own. Now are you finding out that you're doing more administration than actual law practice? Lexicon can help. Lexicon is a legal technology provider with over a decade of experience streamlining administrative tasks like timekeeping, billing, and more, so you can focus on maximizing billable hours and increasing client satisfaction. Call 855-4-LEXICON or visit lexiconservices.com/go to learn more.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Of course, election season is, well, we're reaching the crescendo here shortly. Don't worry, we're still going to be doing our regular free-for-all Friday thing tomorrow. But in the meantime, trying to get in at least another candidate interview or so here. Got the chance to talk with, a little bit earlier today, Brian Kennedy, candidate for El Paso City Council District Number 1. This is the really crowded race on the ballot there, with just over a half dozen candidates on the ballot there. And yeah, a lot of issues, particularly facing it to being one of those outskirts of the county, or on the the parts of the county outskirts that are growing the fastest. And so a lot of issues there, but also a lot of issues that we're going to delve into. So talking both about his platform, as well as what actually going on in RJ. Again, always appreciating the music there. So as I mentioned a little bit before the break there, we're able to speak with him earlier today. We have a video error, so you're not going to be able to see him in this first part of the interview. We will have it for the second part. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Brian Kennedy, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 1. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely happy to talk with you about this race, and, of course, why you're running for it, because this is one of the more crowded races on the ballot here. So making sure people know what are some of the issues at hand is very important here. So for those unfamiliar with yourself or your candidacy here, please introduce yourself, give a little bit about your background and why you're running for office.
My name is Brian Kennedy. I'm running for City Council District 1. And some of my background, I came to El Paso quite a few years ago with the military. I was an interrogator for the military intelligence units, and I spoke Russian, Polish, Czechoslovakian, Serbo-Croatian, predominantly Russian. When I got out of the Army, I had fallen in love with El Paso. And so I stayed here. I ran Vista Hills Country Club briefly. And basically, I was in radio for about 20 years on KTSM, strangely enough, on Y96, 96.3. So I was there for years, ended up owning part of those stations and some additional stations. And then when I got out of that, for 23 years, I owned a recording studio up the street for a while. And I also ran the Coliseum for the county.
Right.
When I got out of that, I mean, I did some stuff before that. I was Prince's bodyguard briefly. I was Rod Stewart's bodyguard briefly. But then when I got out, I did that for 23 years. I ran the Coliseum and created the Sports Commission as a not-for-profit, so it wouldn't be paid for with tax money, would be paid with hotel money. After that, at 59, while talking to my wife, she said, what's something that we haven't done that you want to do? And I said, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So at 59 years old, I went to law school. I graduated cum laude at 62. And now I am a full-time lawyer. I have left the Sports Commission, and now for a little over a year now, but for 4 years, I've been an attorney. For over a year now, I've had my own law firm. And why am I running? Because I'm mad like everybody else. You know, I get a tax bill, and I started hearing, no, we haven't raised your taxes in 3 years. And to me, taxes are simple. What did you pay last year? What do you pay this year? If it went up, they raised your taxes. It's just that simple. And then I started saying, nobody's fighting this. They're just kind of, everybody's going along. And so I decided, this town has been very good to me, and you have to give back. And so I said, I'm going to see if I can make a difference in this town. And so I offered myself up to the people in District 1 to be their city council representative.
Again, as we mentioned, this is a crowded race with a not quite half dozen, just over now at this point, number of candidates on the ballot here. And of course, the some of the items that you have up there, people want to find out more information, electbriankennedy.com. That's ElectBriankennedy. That's 2 N's.com. People want to find out here. Some of the main issues they have on there are, well, taxpayer focused here, among other things. And of course, some of the differentiation we make between the city and the county about how they've handled taxes is that the city has done in the last couple of years, either a flat tax rate, kept it the same rate from one year to the next, or did it as a reduced rate. But of course, that's talking about the percentages, not necessarily the total actual amount here, because people may have still noticed, given that there have been valuations going up within the Central Appraisal District, that they still may have on the balance ended up paying more.
And that's one of the things that's the smoke and mirrors of politics. Oh, it's the Central Appraisal District that did it. The Central Appraisal District has never levied a tax in their life. They're not a taxing entity. They tell you what your land is valued at. Every taxing entity has the option of picking no new revenue. Every single one, the school districts, the county, UMC, community college, city. They all have the option of saying no new taxes. And now with the new truth in taxation, they have to tell you what that rate would be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the city, they dropped their tax rate and then touted the biggest tax rate drop in 35 years. And the truth of that matter is, okay, that's partially true, but it doesn't tell the whole story. They were required to do 80% of that drop by state law, or they would have hit the rollback rate.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't mention that. They just thought, oh, look what we did. And oh, by the way, you're paying 6% more taxes. Well, then in effect, you've raised taxes 6%. And I think that's how we need to deal with taxes.
There's a bit putting it as not just what is our part into it, but looking at the whole picture, essentially.
Looking at the picture of what's the final outcome of what city council does. Look at the city council portion of the taxes and say, here's what we did with our portion of the taxes. It has been the fastest growing portion over the last couple of years, the city's portion, percentage-wise. Their percentage has gone up more than the other taxing entities. And that's a concern. And it's when you say, oh, no, we haven't raised your taxes for 3 years, and now we're dropping your taxes, and everybody looks at their tax bill and they go, no, that's not true. Well, let's just tell people the truth. And if you need more money, you tell them why. We need more money. Here's what it is going to accomplish. It's like any business in the world. That's what you would do with a business to a board of directors, and that's effectively what it is. City council is the board of directors of $1 billion company. It's between 1.1 and 1.2 billion dollars. And those are the people that are making the strategic decisions, or are supposed to be making the strategic decisions for the city.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Brian Kennedy, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 1, representing the, still getting used to the phrase, northwest part of the city of El Paso here. Get any more information about him, his positions, what we're talking about here, electbriankennedy.com. That's Kennedy, Kennedy with 2 N's there. And a few other things that you have, of course, also on your, again, platform. And so the major issues you're referencing here. Also, the city manager is one that you are tackling and addressing into. What are some of the points you're wanting to or people to know about your platform on that point?
I mean, we can talk about his contract, but his contract was voted on by city council, and we're stuck with it. There are things in there that are egregious that nobody pitched a fit about. I mean, the mayor tried to veto it twice, but it kept getting overridden. And I think there's some things in there no business would ever put in. There's back end money in retirement plans that they say, oh, look, we capped his salary. Isn't that great? Well, yeah, but there's benefits in back end and things like that. I think overall, a city manager form of government isn't a bad form of government. The problem is it is morphed from what it was originally. Originally, it was city council made the decisions. The city manager then implemented those decisions. And city council has forgotten that's an employee. It's not their boss. It's an employee. And it seems like they keep shifting more and more power to the city manager. City manager, like right now, if he wants to choose a department head, he can pick anybody he wants, no matter what their qualifications are. And nobody has a checks and balance on it. One time, even a vendor was appointed as an assistant city manager, and part of that job was to oversee the vendor's contract. And nobody could say anything because they had no power to do it. Well, city council needs to take that power back. City manager can move $1 million from one line item to another as long as they're approved projects without asking anyone. It's the only one in West Texas that can move $1 million and not ask. Mayor can't do it. City council has to pass it. But the city manager can go, I'm going to move $1 million. Why? Well, because I think this is a better project. Doesn't have to give any reason, just can move it. I think that needs to change. I think that it's a good form of government. I think that council needs to get better control of it and better oversight over what the city manager is doing.
So then what would be the remedy for that there? Is it just a kind of more consistent philosophy being exercised in city council, or would this have to go to anything towards like a charter election?
It will have, some of it will have to be a charter amendment. It will have to be a charter amendment because it's been chartered in. And what happened is every time there was not every time, but many times when there was an election, there would be like something small. Well, we're going to allow the city manager to do this. And everybody goes, well, yeah, I don't care. And so the power begins to grow. And if you're going to bring it back to what it was originally, it's going to be a combination of things. It's going to have to be action by city council and a charter amendment. Now, there's a charter amendment coming in the spring. Okay. And so, there is a charter amendment looming. And I think that some of this would have to be charter amendment and some of this would have to be action by council. As far as how much can be moved from one line item to another, council could change that like that.
Okay.
They can make that decision. Some of it has been implemented into the charter that would then have to be moved back into where city council has more control.
Okay.
So take both.
Okay. So kind of both aspects of it then here. Again, that is Brian Kennedy. We had an error with our video recording in the first part of that. That's why we had that slide up. But coming up the second part, we were able to restart it and get the video back going here. So we're going to go ahead and take that break right now and then get back into the interview, leading off again with the infrastructure and those kind of things, including we'll get into the bond here, but got to take that break right now. So coming out of this break, I'll maybe mention a couple more of the comments coming up so far. I've been popping some up on screen for those of you on the social media channels. All of you out there in Radio Land, don't worry, we'll keep getting to some of those concerns as well. But I guess taking that break again right now, again, if you want to get on the line a little bit later in the show, we'll have those lines open, but otherwise more comments coming on, so stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break with more here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 75-year-old man was found brutally murdered in the basement of his South El Paso home, and now police have arrested his grandson. Rodolfo Murphy Sr. was found stabbed to death on Saturday night. His family had been concerned after spotting a trail of blood around his home. On Wednesday, El Paso police arrested the victim's grandson, Paul Jeremy Martinez. A prosecutor with the El Paso District Attorney's Office has sent a letter to the judge presiding over the Walmart case, saying that he's withdrawing from that case. Curtis Cox sent the letter to Judge Sam Medrano today. It's unclear why he's withdrawing from the Walmart case, but it only adds to the ongoing drama at the DA's office. DA Yvonne Rosales is fighting to keep her job. She's embroiled in a legal battle that could end with her being removed from office. That civil trial is set to start in March of next year. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our expected weather maker has certainly brought us plenty of wind. Those winds, though, subside late tonight, but they'll pick up again as a cold front moves in Friday morning. That's when the cold air arrives. The colder air coupled with those winds will make for a chilly day, but luckily winds die down by the evening on Friday. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
Have you thought about getting dental implants? Has someone told you that dental implants cost $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 per tooth? Please do not pay that much money. Instead, go to 1995implants.com, the El Paso dental office where beautiful, top-quality, long-lasting dental implants are as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown. Plus, we offer a free consultation with the dentist, free standard x-rays, and convenient financing plans to fit your budget. At 1995implants.com, dental implants are very affordable. So, get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, and loose old wobbly dentures and get the amazing new smile that you've been wanting. 1995implants.com is conveniently located right here in El Paso. For more information, please see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
It's pro time because at Lowe's it's Provember. Over 30 days to save big. Full of more inventory, more Lowe's MVPs bonus points, and more of the deals you deserve. Because it always pays to be a pro at Lowe's. Save all Provember long. This report is sponsored by Lowe's.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends.
For my community.
for everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the very many different social media platforms we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in over there, including Eric McNabb, Marky Mandingo, RJ, John Brazelton, Louis Pinato, RJ, I think I said that already, Abel Rodriguez, and a whole lot more there. Dropping those likes and reacts that we do appreciate over on particularly the Facebook pages. We do have Flaco Jimenez, Ed Clore, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Lorenzo Colon, Glenn Stewart, and Ted Kors. Again, if you appreciate the ability to talk about the things that affect us here in the borderland, drop that like, drop that react, hit the bell, make sure you're notified when videos are going live, as well as share, tell a friend, etc., whatever works best for you. One question I had to get to here, RJ asking, does District 1 have some Whigs and Tory candidates? If anyone is running under that banner, they're technically in violation of city council and charter guidelines, but to my knowledge, no. Again, technically, El Paso City Council races are nonpartisan, which, of course, doesn't mean that they can't have partisan ideas behind them, but it means that they can't run under that specific banner. So you won't be seeing any R, Ds, L, G, whatever letters next to any of the names on the ballot here, though of course knowing what they're talking about can definitely lead you to know a lot more about their policies. So there's a lot more commentary been coming on, again, been posting some of them up over on the social media channels if you want to see that here, including more than a little bit of discussion about the city manager, of course, coming off that last question. But as I mentioned, we did have a video error with the first part of the interview, but we were able to restart it and get it going for this part. So here is the second part of that interview with, again, Brian Kennedy, candidate for El Paso City Council District Number 1. As we left off, we were getting into the idea of infrastructure and that kind of funding. So here is the second half of the interview. Here, enjoy. On infrastructure, neighborhood access, those kind of things,
Right.
What are some of the major positions you are taking with your platform?
Well, there's various areas that have problems on the west side. One of the main ones, and we're hearing about now, is Frontera, where a local feeder street is about to become a thoroughfare, basically, with the building of a housing complex and the potential of a new arena in that area. They won't be using, the arena would not be using Frontera, but it would force additional traffic down Frontera. And now you're talking about an area that is limited in its accessibility for roads and for cars, and adding hundreds of cars a day. But there's issues like that around District 1 also. There are areas where the city abuts to areas that are not in the city but are still in the county.
Mm-hmm.
And there are areas like, people don't know that, Doniphan may be a state highway, but the feeder roads off it are not. So this really takes a coordinated effort with RMA, the Regional Mobility Authority, TxDOT, obviously, which is doing the freeways, but the RMA does the main, feeders off that.
Right.
And city and county, because if the plan works all together, if you're in a growth area, the plan has to work together to make sure it's seamless in, you don't want, well, why did the county not build a street that abuts to where the city street is? Well, maybe nobody told them. So there has to be that conversation. But transportation is what we hear in so many conversations with people. It's like, if you want to know if there's a problem, just drive the streets in District 1 and you can list them out for you. And starts with, well, Red Road in this area. And, you could lose a car in some of the potholes in this area. And some of that is because of the materials that are being used.
Right.
Because we're worried more about the heat than we are about rain. So because there's an expansion contraction with heat and cold, it's more porous, which means the water gets in. So then you have to start worrying about, well, how is it built from the ground up? What's the base? What's the materials? I don't know a ton about it, but I've talked to some of the people that do, and those are the people that we need to be asking. how do we fix this so it's good for longer than the next, one term of 4 years? And then look, for 4 years, I fixed it. Now I'm not in office. Now somebody else can fix it again.
Of course, part of the issues that come up with this is about the financing, the funding of it, as you kind of mentioned here. And of course, there is alongside with you on the ballot here, those city propositions, those propositions A, B, and C on that put forth as the community progress bond, including referencing some of the mailers I've received on this here. So what is your perspective then on those aspects, specifically about the bonds and particularly Proposition A in relation to this, which is the lion's share of the funding, the $240 million in change slated to go towards roads, streets, mobility projects, et cetera, on the city side of things?
I don't think the city's done a good job on that one of explaining to everybody why their property taxes, which are so high, are not going to repair roads. And they could say, well, it's not enough. We need more. Well, you can always use more. I understand that. But I don't think there's been a very good job saying, here's what's going on with that. They'd like to say, well, we make presentations to city council. Well, unless we're all willing to watch city council, I think there needs to be a better outreach on an ongoing basis to say, what are the roads problems? And here's how we're going to address it. Because I hear the questions all the time when people go, with the taxes we pay, why is this not being done under what we already pay?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anybody's against saying, yes, we need more roads done, because they do. That's the truth. The roads are, in some areas in District 1, are awful. Because, I've walked almost all of them, and I've driven almost all. It's awful. But convince me that you're using the tax money I give you wisely, and then ask for more. When we look at water parks that are losing $5 million a year, and the new idea, well, we'll just sell alcohol, because that'll help.
Mm-hmm.
We have a family attraction where we just sell alcohol trying to break it. We pay a private operator to lose $5 million a year. Is that a good expenditure? I don't know. We have to take a look at that. The trolley loses approximately $1 million a year. Is that a good expenditure? Well, let's sit down and make decisions in public with public discussions saying, here's why in the long run this is a good decision, not just, well, because I want it. And if you make those decisions and you can prove to the average person, the average taxpayer, the average voter, that the money that you're giving us is being spent wisely and it's just not enough, then I think you can go to them comfortably and get a really good response. And right now when I'm walking, none of them are getting a very good response.
One final thing I want to make sure we address here. Economic development has been, of course, a major focus both for the city, for individual candidates, and particularly for District Number 1. It takes on an interesting kind of standpoint here because District Number 1, as it again is expanding and going more towards the north here. There's a couple things that people driving along Trans Mountain Road on the west side of the mountains here can see. Of course, there is the new hospital there with a lot of land waiting to be used around it, and some of that has been kind of mixed up in the concept of PSB land and the Northwest Master Plan that has kind of not been referenced in recent years, but that's some of the prelude there. But then, of course, there's a lot more expansion going on there. Previous guests on the show, Snyder Electric, among other things, in kind of the Westtown Marketplace area. So there is growth and building going on there even now. But what are some of the things you see, particularly for the district, that needs to be done to kind of continue that, or what is your perspective on it?
The problem that we're running into, first of all, I think that area is a great area ripe for development, for large development, not just retail.
Mm-hmm.
Because retail is one thing, you're moving just local dollars around, but something that will bring dollars in. Westtown was done, and I don't believe they had a single incentive given to them when they built it. But you look at some of the incentives that are bringing, some of the TERS that are being put out there, the tax refinance, the taxing where it's retained in the area. If you say, hey, if you came up to me and said, I'm going to give you $1 if you give me back a dime. I'm the city. Give me $1, I'll give you a dime. That's a good deal. I'll do that every time.
Mm-hmm.
If you say, give me $1 and you got to give me back $2, why would I do that? There are some plans that you look at where the tax abatements are so extreme that you're saying, not only is there no new tax coming to the city, we have to provide infrastructure, we have to provide utilities, we have to provide sheriff, we have to provide city services to that area. When you look at all of that, all the ancillary expenses, which nobody ever wants to talk about, the soft expenses, you say, well, guess what? This is costing us money. Well, why would I give that incentive then? Why would I give an incentive that loses money for the city of El Paso? That just seems to be really bad business. I think that incentives are great as long as they're structured correctly, where you say, we're going to bring in higher paying jobs, we're going to bring in more money to El Paso, not just move our money around. If you wanted to build a building and you said, I'm going to build it whether I get a tax abatement or not, and I say, I'm going to give you a $20 million tax abatement. You go, okay, cool. I don't need it, but okay. I mean, that's not bringing new money in. That's just pushing money around and costing the taxpayer money. That area is ripe for bringing in new business and new industry. The problem some of them are having is the unabated taxes on businesses. The property taxes on businesses, which is not capped like a homestead, which is capped at 10% a year.
Right.
If you're a business, if you're an apartment owner, there's no cap. I talked to two of the largest apartment owners in town, and they said their rents are going up 20% next year to pay for taxes. So it all goes back to you got to watch the budget to make it viable for these businesses to come in. And I think then we can start looking at how do we take what's left and do amenities instead of saying we're going to pay amenities and just keep charging the local taxpayer.
That is, of course, one of the biggest conversations that happens here is amenities versus basic services, all these calculations here. So you've mentioned some of your propositions on the tax rate, on what should be offered within basements and things like that. But when it comes to setting the budget and therefore the tax rate that comes with it, if elected to office, what would be your main priorities?
I think that if you do what's called a zero-based budget, which if you're a city department and you come in and you say, hey, last year I got $12 million and I only need a 5% increase, or I only need a 3% increase. And they go, oh, great, that's not a big increase. Wait a minute. Let's make sure we spent the money we had last year wisely. You know, so you don't start at what last year's budget is. You start at what zero is and say, okay, tell me why you're going to justify everything you're going to spend. Because I'll guarantee you most city departments can do just that. They can tell you, here's what I need and here's why. Because there's some great people working at the city and they can do that. Well, why don't we ask that question? Rather than automatically say, well, what we had last year is the base, and we're going to try and not raise it too much. Well, maybe some departments are overfunded. It is possible. I've dealt with the county and the city, and I was a county employee 20 years ago for 5 years, and I was a department head. And one time they said, everybody has to cut 10%, and it was amazing how effortlessly people were able to do that. You know, so what you have is a situation where departments are like, you know, it's use it or lose it. We're near the end of the fiscal year. Let's hurry up and spend all the money we can, or we're not going to have it next year. Well, if you start to see a big swing in the last month or two, you go, okay, they ran for 10 months at this level. They should run at 12 months at that level. You know, then maybe there's not an increase that's necessary. Maybe there's a budgeting where you can go, okay, this needs to go to this department, which is truly underfunded. You know, and we need to start taking a look at that. But I think it needs to be more than a 2-day budget hearing. I think it needs to be a month. I think every department needs to come and say, we're actually the bosses. The city manager is the implementer. City council is the bosses. You tell me why that number is good for you. And that's what I think we need to do.
Again, guest right now has been Brian Kennedy, candidate for El Paso City Council, District Number 1. Again, any information about him, his campaign, the issues we've been talking about here, electbriankennedy.com. That's electbriankennedy.com. Brian, thank you very much for coming by and talking with us about, again, your campaign, your platform, some of the big issues affecting the district and the city as a whole here today.
Thank you. And I just want to urge everybody, you know, obviously I'm going to ask for their vote. I would like to have their support because I'd like to, you know, I think I can help the city move forward. I think with my skills and experience, I can help the city take a different look at things. But I'd also say, no matter what district, everybody should vote. I mean, that's the only way we get better representation. It's the only way that this system works. So I would urge you, you know, get your friends, get your family, you know, get everybody you know and convince them to go vote. And that's all I'd ask them.
Again, thanks to Brian for coming to speak with us. And again, apologies for any of the video errors, if anyone found inconvenience at that, but did present the entire interview in its fullness, even if we had to truncate one of my questions in order to reset it. But all of his answers there in their completeness. So if you've got any questions about that, again, his website, electbriankennedy.com. But got to take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do during this point during the program. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at the Vinton Road exit. A semi is still blocking the left lane and the left shoulder. Stay to the right. The only backup is in the upper valley right now. I-10 eastbound between the state line and Las Muchas. It's a 5-minute delay. Injury accident red at Wrestler with medical crew on the scene. And a crash reported Wedgwood at Montwood Drive. Take McRae or Sumac as your alternates. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 6 and 9 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Help the planet with a tip from iHeartRadio Earth. Water heating can account for up to 25% of the energy consumed in your home. Save money and energy and improve the comfort of your home by turning down the temperature of your water heater from 140 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It can save you up to 22% on your energy bill annually. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Here come Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. January 26th at Plaza Theater. 19 top 10 hits with Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Tickets on sale this Friday, 10 a.m. at Ticketmaster.com. Don't miss Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, produced by Red Tail Live.
Where can you get holiday ready and hosting the entire family ready? Lowe's, actually. Save on a Samsung kitchen suite. Was $5,146, now $3,016. Check back daily for deals during Black Friday month at Lowe's. Offer valid through 11/9. Exclusions apply. See store for details.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. Do have that phone line open right now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. If you get put on hold with a minute before getting answered, just wait a minute and we'll be right there with you. If we call in the middle of a segment, it's entirely possible to get popped up live. So just stay on the spot there with the phone and ready to go. And we'll get to you as soon as we can, that kind of thing. But also a lot of comments coming in from our very many social media pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, such as Eric McNabb, Eric Von Holstein-Rathlow, Flaco Jimenez, John Brazelton, Marky Mandingo, Calvin Williams, and at least one point here, and this is why I like talking about policy. RJ, don't want to miss out on that, particularly saying that laying out the issues here, saying the West Side is just mapped out wrong. One fender bender on Country Club, Frontera, and you're stuck. The rest could take 5 paragraphs. Yeah, there's only so much we can fit on screen text-wise, and yeah, there definitely are the way I've always looked at it, particularly like right here, where I'm sitting in this office right now, there are 3 major routes. Used to only really be, kind of like 3.5 now, which is kind of start talking about the border highway, but still, like all within almost literally a stone's throw of here. It's called a mile. There are 3, now 4 major routes that any one gets impacted. The other 3 almost immediately feels like start getting overwhelmed. Talking there about Mesa, which I've seen some work on it. Those growing pains were not fun. There was, of course, now I-10, There's also Donovan, and then the kind of the border highway, or border highway west expansion, which then goes right into I-10, not too far up from here. So that's why I'm like saying like 3.5 is really how it goes. And yeah, that goes kind of choke points given some of the, well, geographic issues that we start encountering, such as Cristo Rey, Mexico, etc. Definitely complicate things. But just as a further example of why I really like talking about policies to make sure that we are actually understanding what's at issue here and what's at stake here. Comment a little bit earlier that we did not pop up because it was not at all relevant to the discussion we were having here, besides more that we'll get to here on people mentioning about city manager. But Eric McNabb bringing up his point here, just going to read it verbatim. Republicans just blocked a bond to improve access to health care for El Paso's children. Republicans are purposely sabotaging our government and city from outside our city. And some brave soul asked him to explain further about this. And what he said specifically was that Republicans from outsider of El Paso financed and produced a petition to prevent the city from voting on the bond without it being voted on by voters. This happened literally last month. So I just want to make this perfectly clear, but I don't really have any particular animosity for anyone that calls in or comments on this show, regardless of their position. Though I do maybe get annoyed if someone's kind of missing the point of discussing the issues and not just kind of like talking over people's heads about, well, you're bad because of these other things. But there are some specifically very wrong things you're talking about here. And again, this is not done in a like a gotcha kind of way, but was not the city, it was the county doing this bond, and it was mostly the county voting on behalf of the El Paso County Hospital District, also aka UMC, though slightly different for some of the circumstances here. You may recall we briefly had them on the show to discuss that, the County Hospital District that is, but also the petition that was put forth was done under that subsection of the Texas Government Code. I actually have a version of it here. Well, that's the mailer it came in anyway. And so this doesn't actually cite the subsection on the mailer I have in front of me. I got the petition around here somewhere. And what it was preventing it from being voted on as a certificate of obligation bond. And the difference between that and a general obligation bond is certificates of obligation do not have to be voted on by the voter. So what the action that was taken by that petition that, 30,000 then, estimated down to about, high 20,000s as it was then ultimately accepted by, means that it can no longer go forward as a general obligation bond. If it were to continue to move forward, it would have to be voted on by the voters. So that's why understanding the policy is here, because you seem to be in favor with your statement of things being voted on by voters. This would require it to be done so. So that's why talking about policy and making sure we understand policy is ever so slightly important. But we'll talk more about that when we come out of this next break. Got to get to that top of the hour here. If you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound at the Vinton Road exit. A semi is still blocking the left lane and the left shoulder. Stay to the right. The only backup is in the upper valley right now. I-10 eastbound between the state line and Las Muchas. It's a 5-minute delay. Injury accident red at Wrestler with medical crew on the scene. And a crash reported Wedgwood at Montwood Drive. Take McRae or Sumac as your alternates. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Politicians have led us down the wrong path. Record inflation and cost of living, unsafe border communities, a war on oil and gas jobs. Enough is enough. Catherine Parker will uphold our Texas values. A successful businesswoman and rancher, Catherine Parker will lower inflation and our cost of living. Catherine Parker will work to permanently lower your property taxes. Catherine Parker will stand up to the radicals who threaten our values and put our families in harm's way. Catherine Parker will secure our border communities and fully fund border security. Catherine Parker will stand with law enforcement and against those who want to defund our police, because our communities deserve to be safe. And Catherine Parker will defend the oil and gas jobs that power our communities. Truth, freedom, prosperity. Vote Catherine Parker for District 74 on November 8th. Political ad paid for by Catherine Parker Campaign.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Biden is promoting his administration's student loan debt relief program as the midterm elections are less than a week away. While campaigning for Democrats in New Mexico, Biden said more than 40 million Americans stand to benefit from the program, and nearly 26 million have already applied for forgiveness. The plan includes canceling $10,000 for most student loan borrowers. The man who allegedly attacked House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband in their San Francisco home last week is in the U.S. illegally. Phil Hewlett has more.
The Department of Homeland Security confirmed David DePape's immigration status this morning. According to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, DePape is a Canadian national. He's being held in San Francisco County Jail on attempted murder and multiple other felony charges after he allegedly broke into the Pelosi home in Pacific Heights and assaulted Paul Pelosi with a hammer. DePape has a bail hearing on Friday. I'm Phil Hewlett.
The family of Gabby Petito is suing a Utah police department for $50 million, saying their failures led to her death. Attorneys representing the family say they believe the 22-year-old would still be alive if police properly handled a domestic violence situation between Petito and her then-fiancé Brian Laundrie back in August. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is responding to North Korea's latest series of missile tests.
We've decided to extend Vigilant Storm, which is our long schedule combined training exercise.
Austin called on North Korea to stop the weapons tests and urged the country to engage in serious dialogue toward denuclearization. Wall Street is closing with stocks lower after the Federal Reserve announced another rate hike yesterday. The central bank also hinted it wasn't slowing down anytime soon with raising rates. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. A report says Florida Governor Ron DeSantis may be reconsidering any potential plans to run for president. Rick Hoschel reports.
According to Vanity Fair, Republican sources say DeSantis indicated to donors that he wouldn't take on former President Trump should he decide to seek the GOP nomination. One source telling the publication that DeSantis may decide to hold off until 2028 to make a White House bid and avoid a primary battle with Trump. During a debate with Democratic opponent Charlie Crist last week, DeSantis declined to say if he's running for president or if he would commit to serving a full second term as governor.
2 Long Island men are under arrest for being a part of a nationwide catalytic converter theft ring. 26-year-old Adam Sharkey of West Islip and 57-year-old Robert Gary Sharkey of Babylon were arrested along with 21 other people. A Swiss-based chocolatier launched a new type of chocolate bar based on more than 20 years of research into cocoa beans. Aaron Real reports.
The world's biggest chocolatier, Barry Callebaut, said its second-generation chocolate will use around 50% less sugar than traditional chocolate thanks to a new way of cultivating, fermenting, and roasting cocoa beans that reduces their bitter taste. Second-generation chocolate uses only cocoa and sugar to make dark chocolate and only milk cocoa and sugar to make milk chocolate. The product, which will also use about 60 to 80% more cocoa, is likely to appeal to the more health-conscious consumer. World cocoa prices are more than 4 times that of sugar, and the new chocolate is more expensive to produce and might be priced slightly higher than regular chocolate.
Some of the most famous supercars ever built are going up for auction. The owner of the 18-car collection worth $45 million has chosen to keep their identity private. Some of the cars include the Bugatti Chiron Super, which is valued at $5 million, and a 1985 Ferrari GTO that's only been driven just 8,000 miles. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Grand. That's grand. Enter it now.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
17 million veterans have served our country. Since 2001, more than 125,000 veterans have died by suicide. Hundreds of thousands more suffer from the invisible wounds of war. It's time to act. Homebase has provided life-saving world-class care to over 30,000 veterans and family members, all at no cost to them from every state. The time to show your support is now. Donate today at homebase.org/iHeart and help our heroes heal. Make a gift, save a life. The time is now. Homebase.org/iHeart.
I'm Joe Adams. I'm a pharmacist. I'm also a parent that knows the pain of losing their child to an opiate overdose. We lose 64,000 lives a year due to this epidemic. No one is immune from this. The members of the National Association of Boards of Pharmacy focus on ensuring that pharmacies and pharmacists are providing safe medications and patient services for you and your family. Learn how to keep you and your loved ones safe at nabp.pharmacy.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We are up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people chiming in over on those pages as well, making a lot of comments here, adding their 2 cents or dropping the dime, I guess is where putting it now. Yes, I know that means something else, but hey, if we're worried about inflation here, might as well up the contribution here, including Calvin Williams, Eric McNabb, Maria Common, Louis Pinado, Angel Rueda, or Angel, if you prefer. Just let me know what you prefer. I was going off what you had said your supervisor called you, so if you treat that as affectionately, then that's how it's intended. But Sean Gardner as well, and RJ, Barbara Carrasco, and more points here, including at least one question or comment coming here. John Browson making the point here about, if they say this during the campaign, but what happens after the election is over. John Browson saying every candidate for city council or their county judge's court need to sign their campaign promises in their blood. And yet I'd somehow doubt that would still be the lockstep. I mean, you're starting to talk about like a magical contract, I think is what you're aiming for. And good luck with that, among other things. But I mean, some other examples and a lot of conversation, particularly about what we were talking about there involving the city manager, more than a couple of points being brought up there. Well, at least a couple of good ones being made about what exactly is Louis Pinado saying that city government has become a compa fiefdom, where they hire their compas, as well as Abel Rodriguez saying Tommy Texas Gonzalez is the 800-pound gorilla on the backs of El Paso taxpayers. And RJ saying that's enlightening when it came to the idea of charter amendments, saying did not know that charter amendments need to be added and city council will have to deal with political fallout for making decisions where they should be making them already. That's an interesting point to be made. And Eric von Holstein-Rathlow saying it's like no one wants to make any decisions they might have to answer for, so they leave it up to the city manager and just go along. And some other points along that, John Browson saying that back in the pre-city manager days, each city council member oversaw one or more city agencies. The mayor and majority of the city council made management decisions for the city. I mean, there still was the quote-unquote professionalized, the non-elected part of the city government, but the fact that, each incoming administration could completely revamp the workings, that's some of the major conversations that I remember happening at that point in time. Before I could vote on these things, when it was actually being done and those city charter amendments being passed to switch us to this, again, away from the strong mayor described form of government into the city manager form of government. But I will say the idea of there being maybe not the quite flow of information and decisions as it should be has been a concern for, well, kind of a while now. The idea that it's not just that city council makes the decision and that city manager and the city manager side of government executes on it, but that there's more maybe pushback or even saying, okay, this is how you need to do it, city council is, I'm not saying that it shouldn't ever happen, but the way that it sometimes happens, there's a couple examples I can think of when I have been in city council, seeing meetings and stuff like that is very interesting. But one point I did want to make here related to these elections, the amount of fundraising coming up with this. Calvin Williams asking specifically also, where can a person go to see the city budget? And he means a real breakdown of it. I know that there are some of you dig through the city's website for long enough, you can find a lot of interesting things. Let me see if I can dig up a link to it more specifically, because they do offer it like in their budget meetings, and like you could probably get through a couple 100 pages of PowerPoints. So you can kind of get there, but I don't have any like easy link I can give you right now. So let me get back to you on that one here. And of course, a lot of other points being made about city manager, the way budgets are being done. And I finally found that joke about heaven and hell and elections, the difference between the campaign and after the election. Maybe we'll get into that at the end of the show here. But let's go ahead and get back to those phone lines now. Again, if you want to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. We have the line here with us right now. We have Barbara on the west side. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make a comment on an interview that our representative Escobar had with MSNBC last week.
Mm-hmm.
And in that interview, she stated, and I'm going to quote her, virtually all Trump border policies are still in place today. What we are seeing at the border is a result of Republican strategy. Republicans want to address immigration only at the border. They refuse to open up legal pathways. I want to talk a little bit about Title 42, which is a legal pathway. Under Trump, he used Title 42 as grounds for expulsion for public health reasons. Biden, on the other hand, according to the Migration Policy Institute, is using it as an immigration enforcement measure. First time ever it's been used for that. And I was just thinking as I was standing here, is that legal? I'm sure that's going to be taken to court. But anyway, by expelling, using the Title 42 as an expulsion, Biden is encouraging Venezuelans to come in legally through a legal pathway or legal migration. And that is what our representative told us, that does not exist, a legal pathway for these illegal immigrants. So she was being disingenuous by stating otherwise. And then under President Trump, we had the Remain in Mexico policy. Mexico placed over 15,000 troops on our southern border. And it also allowed migrants to stay in Mexico while their asylum applications made their way through the courts. Biden, on the other hand, with his infinite lack of wisdom, I want to say, terminated the Remain in Mexico policy on August the 9th. And let's remember, and I keep saying it, I know I do, I sound like a broken record, federal law requires asylum seekers to be detained. Well, the Biden administration, because everybody basically is playing the system with what they're saying, is releasing virtually everyone into the United States with or without appearance dates, and in some instances, without an alien registration number, and that's according to the Customs Border Patrol. And they do that to speed up the processing time and cut the backlog for more illegal immigrants to come into our country. And then the word illegal. Under Trump, he says if they're here illegally, they will be deported. But not under the Biden administration, because Mayorkas early on specifically stated to the Customs Border Patrol, just because they're here illegally doesn't mean you will deport them. So if virtually all of Trump's policies are still in place, why didn't we hear that the city, the county, were spending millions of our tax dollars for feeding, housing, vaccinating, transporting, and processing illegal immigrants under the Trump administration? Or why didn't we hear about the thousands of unaccompanied children that were being held at Fort Bliss? Or why didn't we see the Venezuelans try to storm our border like they did just this week under the Trump administration, wanting to make their way or force their way into our community? Or why didn't we hear under the Trump administration 300 deaths per day on fentanyl? Or that unaccompanied minor children were being flown throughout the United States without notice to any communities, or stash houses in our own city from one end of El Paso to the other. And we never heard under Trump that 98 terrorists were apprehended in any one fiscal year like we did this year under the Biden administration. And another thing we didn't hear is the Guatemalan president calling the Trump administration facilitators of traffickers, because that's what he's saying about the Biden administration now. So in my opinion, this administration has made a mockery of our immigration system and fools of those who support it. Trump's policies are not in place, and saying so doesn't make it so. So I would encourage everybody to go vote for Irina Armendariz-Jackson tomorrow and on November the 8th. We need someone that we can believe in, we can trust, that has integrity, and will put the best interest of our community first. So go out and vote no on those three propositions, A, B, and C.
Right, referring there to the again, they got that mailer here that the El Paso Community Progress Bond, as the El Paso Progress Political Action Committee called it here, the A, B, and C for the streets, parks and recreation, environment you're talking about there. I will say that for the most parts, there's the policies. I've railed against this for a minute now. The fact that essentially we have a severe lack of policy, the fact that Title 42 is kind of the last vestige, and I even hesitate to call that policy, since really when it is applied, it's a one-line item of removal. It's not really anything more, and it's kind of take the old Patrick Star meme, take the problem, push it over there. It's not really a solution. But I will say there was one notable incident that comes to mind when we're talking about the overwhelming of local resources. I do believe it was around winter, I think it was around Christmas time 2018, when there was that release onto the streets of El Paso that there was a lot of, not governmental resources exactly, but a lot of nonprofit and donations being made to deal with that. So not near the scale of what we're talking about and what, of course, the city and county responses has to have been, but that does come to mind as happening during the Trump administration.
Right, but there's no comparison to what we're experiencing now under the Biden administration.
Yep, fair enough here. So thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew. Have a great day.
You too as well there. We're going to go ahead and take that next break here now as well. Again, if you want to get onto the line here and add your 2 cents or drop that dime, as we're saying now, you can get that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Some more stuff that we're going to get to on here will include, of course, some of those campaign numbers locally, some other local reporting breaking down exactly what we're looking at, including some, let's just call it familiar names that you might recognize from some of our recent interviews. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Northbound on Memorial Highway at the 601 spur, 2 trucks are stalled, blocking the on-ramp. Slow traffic's getting even slower on the 54 southbound between Stan Roberts and Kenworthy with 18-minute delays. Wedgwood at Montwood Drive, an accident with police on the scene, and an injury accident in Zaragoza south of the 10 Gateway at Escobar Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
As you crunch the numbers trying to get the most out of your dollar, we'll throw in a $1,000 inflation bonus. Much better. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen to win $1,000 every hour, weekdays from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. It's the 1,000 inflation bonus on News Talk 690 AM.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has you covered for all your custom printing, just in time for the holidays. And right now at Staples, you can save 40% on custom holiday cards and invitations. In-store and online offer ends 12/17. Exclusions and restrictions apply. Explore more at Staples, the working and learning store.
Hello?
Mike, this is Norma Jean at Sergio Lewis Body Shop near the airport. Have you seen Sergio?
I'm expecting him in a few minutes to cut a new commercial.
I'm really worried about him, Mike. He really believes he's a poet. It's gone to his head.
There's plenty of room up there. Anyways, his poetry isn't that bad.
Will you please have him call the shop?
Sure, Norma.
That's Norma Jean, Mike. Gotta go.
Yee, she's feisty. Hey, Sergio, there you are.
Hey, Mike, I have this great new poem. Check this out, man. Sometimes even our darkest moments are enlightening. Hey, what's so funny, man?
Nothing, Sergio, really. By the way, Norma Jean called.
Really? What did she want?
Oh, she was just telling me what a big fan she is of your poetry, Sergio. Sergio Lewis Body Shop at 3800 Admiral near the airport, where it's the customer's choice, not the insurance company's, and there's a lifetime warranty on all collision repair. 593-0191.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text HUNK to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast. Absolutely free. Text HUNK to 42424. That's HUNK to 42424.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. But you can also find us YouTube, Twitter, and twitch.tv. Similar names, Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk. A few more in between here and there, but wherever you got us at is the right place for you as we continue our mission to have live local talk radio here in the borderland. A lot more comments coming in as well, such as a lot of different comments and points up here, including Calvin Williams accusing me of being always after the money. He'll keep his 2 cents and pick up any dimes that are dropped here, as well as RJ saying 2 bits works for me after paying $4.32 for a dozen eggs at Wally World. And Eric Von Holstein Rathwell saying, gladly pay you tomorrow for a cheeseburger today. And Barbara Carrasco actually putting up that link there to the entire city budget for the previous year and a few different ones. Thank you for getting up to there. But again, if you really want to dig into it, I was thinking more of like individual budgets because that's what I've dug through previously. But it does have for 2022 fiscal year the 511-page document if you really want to really dig into it. So, yeah. Anywho, a lot more comments coming in there, but of course, taking those phone calls as well. If you're wanting to get on the line, that number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. You know, it's a strange thing, the way this city works and the things that happen. Mm-hmm. There doesn't seem to be any mechanism for putting out or determining the grand vision for our community. You know, now a mayor might articulate one, but if he doesn't have the city council and the county judge going along with him, I don't see how it happens. And I've really never heard anyone, perhaps other than Ray Caballero, you know, put out a grand vision for the community. Whatever it is, however this mishmash comes out, I'm sure it wasn't that we all wanted a ballpark, or that we all wanted to have, we had to have some trolleys, or maybe some money-losing water parks. That's not a grand vision. You know who had a grand vision? Your father has a grand vision. That I had the same vision, and many other people in our community have had that vision of a old Mexico, old West town thing, you know, where we could draw tourists, get people off of the freeway to start spending a day or two here. That would make a big difference. You know, tourism dollars could make a big difference. Certainly, you know, you want to bring in more jobs and more companies, but this perpetual growth thing is kind of a cancer in a way, you know? We don't have a whole lot of water for any more growth. And again, you hear these people complain about taxes and roads. Well, hey, guess what? It takes taxes to fix the roads. Running a city, maintaining a city is a very expensive proposition. And then you have a bunch of people who don't make all that much money in this community. I mean, you could have jobs, but they should be talking about well-paying jobs with benefits. Now, how that's going to happen, I don't know. You know, we got to compete with other cities like San Antonio and Houston and Dallas and Denver and Phoenix. They have a whole lot more going for them than El Paso seems to. I mean, what we have going with us, and it will always be the case, how we work it out so that everybody would benefit, is that we're right next to Mexico. Oh yeah, they have you know, lower labor rates, but what American wants to lose their job so that they get a cheaper product, but it's made somewhere else? That's a conundrum. It's a problem. So this whole idea of what development is, it's a crazy thing. We should be thinking about institution that would determine by polling the people what is the vision that El Pasoans want. But we don't have that. It's just a sad thing. It's like we're going around and around in circles, and things are really not getting better in this community. And the dirt and dirty air, one of the dirtiest airs in the country.
So on your idea of then specifically of grand vision, I mean, you would hope that anyone being elected to office would bring that here, though I will say maybe lacking in some ways. But what I will say is this, on particularly the idea, I mean, certainly given some of the things that I talk about and focus on with some of our other programming as well, definitely interested in historic preservation, historic exploration. And I think there's ways to combine these things. If you only have historic preservation without concern for anything else, those are called ruins. And if you have no historic preservation, you have a place that has no sense of place to it. So finding the balances with most things in between is probably where that sweet spot lies. But I'm not sure if putting something like an Old West Town in downtown El Paso would work much anymore. I think on some of maybe the outskirts where you'd also get more of the scenery that goes along with it might work better. But let me just say this, and I have nothing specific or any statements I can really point to here, but I get a sense from years of having reported on city council and some of the offices of the city manager. Again, no one specific I'm trying to point or implicate here in this, but I get this sense that essentially that the focus on history is seen as, by some, or at least again a generalized sense, as maybe distasteful, or maybe more specifically the way I've kind of come to think of it as something that only these tiny little 2-bit towns out in the middle of nowhere in our region do, because they have nothing else. That the history is kind of the thing you fall back on if there is nothing else. Again, that's the sense that I get, that there is this kind of pervasive thinking within some echelons of city government, and I fully disagree with it, because I think that embracing the history and making it the flavor for the whatever you got going on is that much more valuable. But again, that's just the kind of sense that I get, without, again, nothing I can specifically point to, but just a kind of aggregate years of having looked at and seen these kind of discussions related to it, and how it always, the idea of historic preservation as also being used for it, kind of plays, at least within city government, second fiddle to any other idea. So I'm not sure if any of the ideas about reforming city government that have been floating around, either what specifically our candidate interview today had about it, or has been brought up by others, would do anything to change or affect that at all. But I gotta say, I was very encouraged when it was coming up on like 6-7 years ago. I found out that all of El Paso's downtown historic building stock, except for at that point the still Abraham family owned buildings, had been bought up with the purpose of redevelopment and not simply demolition. And we've seen more projects coming along like that. Now we start getting into issues of economic development, public-private partnerships that are certainly up for debate here. But I was encouraged by that point. And I think that El Paso may have essentially lucked into a situation where demographics have changed enough. I mean, we saw middle of last century through pretty much the early part of this century, the whole, suburban movement of people wanting to not be in high density areas, wanting, the white picket fence, 2.5 kids, that whole thing, dog, all that stuff here. And that may have been changing somewhat, and that people of younger generations have been wanting to live places where things are happening and where stuff is easily accessible, of which, central business districts, downtown corridors are more suited towards. So the fact that El Paso managed to hold on to most of its big downtown buildings, of course, some notable ones were lost, but most of them, and now has looked into more development, might be able to ride that wave if done correctly. And this is one of those examples where historic preservation and the fact that we were able to hold on to, again, most of it may serve us well. But to your other point there, specifically about governments or it working not good or bad, I mean, certainly there's the whole, all taxation is theft crowd out there that I have some agreements and some disagreements with, kind of an equal measure. But I think the thing that comes down for the sense I get from most El Pasoans that I have conversations with anyway, is that they don't necessarily disagree with all spending, but they want it managed correctly, because the idea of corruption or just the stupidity of things being not handled correctly is abhorrent, or at the very least incredibly distasteful. It makes them not want to ever support anything ever again. So if we want to have it and it's spent correctly and well, that's what people really want. So that may be more closer to the kind of grand vision that someone really needs to elaborate on, and how they're actually going to manage it. Because again, putting up priorities, saying we want good things to happen is always great, but the devil is always in the details. How are you going to do it, and how are you going to do it in such a way that addresses the concern of the electorate is, what responsive government should be.
Yeah, and ultimately the problem is plutocracy in El Paso, in the state of Texas, in Washington, D.C., money steering what actually happens. They usually, it's the best return on investment that they make. Corporations and big companies is the investment they make in politicians. It has a huge ROI on it. Beats anything else that they do as a business is getting that politician to do their bidding, to get them the kind of policies they want, to get the kind of people that they want in the regulatory agencies, getting their fox in the chicken coop. That's what it's all about. That's what cripples America. That's why, in spite of all the resources that we have, all the advantages we have still endemic poverty in America. We have homelessness in America. We have vets on the streets. It is a shame. But we've been to the moon. We've got the Webb telescope. We came up with the vaccine. We can do all kinds of stuff. But we can't make the lot of the average man better with the system that we have.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the point in the call. Do appreciate it. All right. With that, we're going to go ahead and take that next break. We got more callers on the line. If you want to get on that line, the number to do so is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We'll be right back after this break with more Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. That number one more time. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. A 75-year-old man was found brutally murdered in the basement of his South El Paso home, and now police have arrested his grandson. Rodolfo Murphy Sr. was found stabbed to death on Saturday night. His family had been concerned after spotting a trail of blood around his home. On Wednesday, El Paso police arrested the victim's grandson, Paul Jeremy Martinez. A prosecutor with the El Paso District Attorney's Office has sent a letter to the judge presiding over the Walmart case, saying that he's withdrawing from that case. Curtis Cox sent the letter to Judge Sam Medrano today. It's unclear why he's withdrawing from the Walmart case, but it only adds to the ongoing drama at the DA's office. DA Yvonne Rosales is fighting to keep her job. She's embroiled in a legal battle that could end with her being removed from office. That civil trial is set to start in March of next year. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Couple of crashes. Look out for you near El Paso freeways. I-10 eastbound downtown at the Dallas Street exit, an injury accident with police responding and medical too. Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Edgemere, a crash with injuries. A multi-vehicle accident in the Lower Valley on Memorial Highway northbound at Pan American Drive. And traffic slow on the 54 southbound between Stan Roberts down to Kenworthy with 21-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. Our expected weather maker has certainly brought us plenty of wind. Those winds, though, subside late tonight, but they'll pick up again as a cold front moves in Friday morning. That's when the cold air arrives. The colder air coupled with those winds will make for a chilly day, but luckily winds die down by the evening on Friday. Log on to kfoxtv.com for your latest forecast.
This report is sponsored by News Nation. Chris Cuomo is back with a new show on a new network. Catch Cuomo weeknights on News Nation at 6 and 9 p.m. Mountain. To find News Nation on your television provider, go to newsnationnow.com/join us.
Beautiful, top quality, long-lasting dental implants as low as $19.95 at 1995implants.com. The El Paso Dental Office, where implants are affordable. Other places charge $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, up to $6,000 per tooth. Please do not pay that much. Please do come to 1995implants.com, where our price is much lower, as low as $1,995 per tooth, including the implant, abutment, and crown, which many other places charge extra for. Plus, at 1995implants.com, we also offer a free consultation, free standard x-rays, and very convenient payment options. Now's the time to get rid of your cracked teeth, missing teeth, or loose, old, wobbly dentures and get the beautiful new smile that you want at a very affordable price. 1995implants.com. For more information, see our website, 1995implants.com. That's 1995implants.com. Se habla español.
Did you guys hear the news? Great American Steakhouse has got a new location located on the west side on Sunland Park Drive. If you haven't stopped by to visit, make sure you do so for lunch, carry out, and yes, even for dinner.
Political ad paid for by Texans for Greg Abbott.
Beto O'Rourke stands with radical groups who want to defund the police. Governor Abbott stands with law enforcement so they can keep Texas families safe. Greg Abbott, Governor.
This report is paid for by the Texans for Greg Abbott.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, whichever place here you got us at, able to see the video, the interviews as we have them when we usually have video for all of them. Again, apologies to the first half of the interview with Brian Kennedy. Had a video error with it, so we'll bring you the full interview and his major responses and platform positions as we're able to get to them. But a lot of comments coming in there as well, including from RJ, Kevin Williams, Drew Anns, Louis Pinato, Austin Redfern, Eric Von Holstein Rathlow, Keith Wilden, Barbara Carrasco, Marky Mandingo, who else am I missing there? Glenn Stewart, and a lot of different points being made there, including some interesting points being made about RJ on the idea of the whole Old West Town, saying Old Tucson stayed busy every time I went there. Would love to see Old El Paso, gunfights in the streets and the whole show, but Westerns aren't as popular as they once were. I mean, I think that there's a level of it that is still, I mean, there's always like a base level of popularity, I do think, even if it's not as much in like the zeitgeist or anything. But again, I think if you really want to do it, you'd look at, heck, I think a great place to do it would be like maybe on the way in between essentially Chaparral and in 54, really, where you still got some of those clear view of the mountains. Yeah, I'm not going to call it exactly the correct and accurate historic backdrop, but I mean, there used to be reenactments in downtown El Paso. Some of those places have unfortunately burned down in our parking garages. Not blaming the parking garage, but sad that it had to happen. So, I mean, getting the backdrop right, the sense of place would be good. So, I mean, you're almost thinking more set design at that point than strict historical accuracy, but I think it could do something. I think a mountain backdrop would serve El Paso the best there, though. If I won that Powerball, hey, don't worry, I'd still be doing this show. We just have a hell of a lot more production going on to it, but also I'd be doing stuff like that. Kevin Williams pointing out El Paso has a branding problem. I think that's kind of almost always a part of it here. And Keith Wilden also saying that take a drive down Yandle between Brown and Santa Fe. That's needed work for darn near 25 years. So we've had many streets redone multiple times there. Barbara Carrasco also saying, and this is why we do take the calls that we do, even if some people may disagree with them, because sometimes points of agreement can be found in surprising places. Not saying everyone has to agree. This is not a kumbaya, can't we all get along kind of exercise, but this is why I also say focusing on policy and what's important to you as opposed to anything dogmatic is more important to me than anything, because people can sometimes actually agree on things, and yeah, I think it's important. Also, some other comments coming in about there some people having tried to build some out in Vado, one of those actual kind of remnants of it. You can see if you head out towards out Montana way. You can still see versions of it. You head out towards Guadalupe Peak. That there are a lot of important issues to be dealt with here. So again, a lot more comments coming in there. And Keith Wilden actually saying that, yeah, they might be working on it. And Bernadette Bandicoal, well, interesting comparison to be made. They're saying Rosa's Cantina is a good one there. And yeah, Six Guns and Shady Ladies definitely was there as well. And I'll definitely be playing the lotto there as well. Interesting comments. Let's back to those phone lines now. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Do we have Frankie and Messia on the line with us here right now? Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right, right out of the box. This is beyond sick. This is borderline psychotic stuff. First off, I wanted to talk about inflation and and economics and stuff like that.
Sure.
You know, so what all of a sudden happens the morning this happens is I find out on Yahoo that this guy, Brian Kilmeade, goes on with a straight face and says that asking for Nancy is the equivalent of FedEx ringing your doorbell and answering for Nancy. I ask you and all the other people in the Southwest border region, what kind of absolute ignorance is this? And more importantly than that, what is the matter with people that even listen to this kind of program, for crying out loud? That's my first comment right out of the box.
I mean, I get what you're saying there, though. I'm also going to say that there's a definite difference of someone saying, hey, where's, say, Frankie while holding a delivery box, and saying, where's Frankie while holding a hammer, just for argument's sake.
Well, yes. First off, it's already proven this guy's a nut job. There's no question about it. That he's looking for Nancy. He sees Nancy's husband and he smacks the heck out of him, almost puts him to death, if you will. And then I just can't get over that because I'm almost 5 plus. I can hardly talk. This nut job on Foul Noise Network gets on there and says it's an equivalency of FedEx knocking on your door and asking, hey, where's Nancy? Because I want to deliver her package. This is insane. In the words of the great John McEnroe, you cannot be serious. Unbelievable. What's your thought process?
I mean, again, I got nothing to really say to defend that. That's why I kind of eschew hot takes for the most part, because they can tend to lead you down weird pathways of thought here. Because, yeah, I mean, described the way as you're putting it here, and not going to be a statement I'm going to be finding myself supporting of. Any assault on anyone related to any political purpose is unconscionable at its very base level. And, well, there's a lot more words I'd like to use there to describe what I think of anyone who thinks that doing anything similar to that would be anywhere near acceptable. Short hint, it's not.
Well, okay. I mean, you're a rational, normal person. I get that. But one last thing, good news for me. My EBID water assessment did not increase over last year, and my property taxes, hello everybody in Texas, did not increase over last year. So I'm warm and fuzzy, and I even had an extra beer and an extra shot of Irish whiskey to celebrate it. So eat your hearts out there. What do you think of that?
Well, I guess congrats to you, and hope it works out for you in the long run.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Have a good day.
You too as well. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there, too.
All right.
Let's squeeze in a couple more calls here if we can at most. We have Eric here on the we have, who do we have here? We have call on line 1. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, this is Stephen.
Oh, Stephen, thank you very much.
So I was able to vote yesterday.
Oh,
it was
excellent.
Way better than previous voting. I remember the first time I voted here in El Paso, and it wasn't a very good experience. It was way back when I was voting for Mitt Romney, and we actually found out it was like a huge wait, hours.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually found out the results of the election before I even got the vote. So that was not a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
I went ahead and stayed in line and went ahead and voted anyways, just to do my civic duty. But this time, it took me 10 minutes, piece of cake. The only issue I had was as I was walking in, and, I don't hold it against this girl. She was a young girl and she was working for a campaign. I'm not going to mention the campaign, but I don't like it when I'm literally walking into the building and then I get approached by people who are trying to, campaign right then and there. I don't think that's the time and place to try to push your issues. So it may be legal and everything. I just find it a little bit distasteful.
I get what you're saying here. I mean, there are those whole 100 feet, it's 100 yards. I think it's only 100 feet away from the entrance to the polling place markers that are, of course, put because, hounding someone on the way up to the door here. I guess I don't get that as a campaign tactic, but then again, I also look at our non-voter rates and therefore likely amount of uninformed voters out there, given the fact of how name recognition seems to play into beyond policies than anything, which is, and I'm not saying I like this, I absolutely hate this, but given the fact that just hearing someone's name ends up seemingly to have an impact on voting outcomes here in El Paso, I guess I'm not surprised about it, even if, again, I don't like it.
Yeah. And then probably with other people, I'm going to agree with Raul, which is a little bit unusual, but I do agree that it is a problem when the people involved in government are in league with the corporations and businesses. And that's one of the things that the corporations do in order to kind of crush their competition is they use the government and the levers of government and the regulatory body in order to kind of prevent their competition from ever rising up. And then you don't really have a capitalistic system anymore. You've got crony capitalism, and we don't like that. Now, what we probably will disagree on is that Raul will always vote for bigger government and more regulatory bodies and more power in the hands of government that can be used in the corporation's favor. So I think that maybe the tactics being used by that side are erroneous.
If it's, again, one of those magic wand moments for me, the whole Citizens United decision that, I mean, it's not the sole cause for issues, particularly at our local level here, but it is, well, it contributes to it, at the very least, the ability of PACs, super PACs, and dark money to exist is, well, that's, you want to put it at an exception point, it would definitely be that Supreme Court decision, essentially equating the spending of dollars to speech, and therefore meaning that there are going to be some campaign finance laws, surely, but that there are other ways and avenues for there to be no accountability for where it's actually coming from. And that's where I think it starts no longer being totally a First Amendment thing, because sure, you're entitled to your speech, you're not entitled to be having no repercussions from your speech. So that's, again, if I had a magic wand, that's one of the things I'd wave and make happen. So yeah, I think that's why I hope against hope that we always have interesting and relevant calls and points and people making impassioned points that we can at least discuss and actually get to here. But yeah, I think that solutions to that may vary, but at least talking about it, I do still find to be important.
Well, yeah, I would say the bigger issue rather than speech or Citizens United is the actual levers that are used by government. For example, if there's some kind of regulation that a corporation is big enough and has enough money to handle, then the lobbyists can have the government put those regulations in place, and a small business who's kind of up and coming won't be able to handle that kind of regulation. They won't be able to compete with the larger corporation that's already in place. So they can kind of crush their competition that way. I mean it that way, that's how corporations kind of crush their competition. Now, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be any regulations. I do think that there are certain things the government is good for and should do in order to protect the environment, all these different things, and to protect people. But it's a very nefarious thing when the government is pushing their power to do certain things. Let's take, for example, what we learned recently. The government, what they were doing is they were in discussions with places like Facebook and Twitter, and they basically had channels by which they could flag what they considered to be misleading information or disinformation. And so if you happen to be the one in power, so let's say the Democrats are in power, and they can say, well, we're going to flag this and this, and we're the Department of Homeland Security, we're going to flag this as disinformation and misinformation. Well, Democrats are going to like that because they're suppressing the free speech of the other side. But if you're allowing the government to have that kind of power over these corporations and the flow of information, then the next time you're going to have the Republicans in power, and then they're going to have those same levers in order to suppress the other side. The government shouldn't have that power in the first place, and that we should definitely push back on that. It doesn't matter which side you're on.
Yeah, again, I've said this for a long time, and I still stand by it. If there's a power that you would love to have in government, and that would be, you think would be so great, but if it gives you night sweats and night terrors to think about someone that disagrees with you or is on the other side of the political aisle from you having control of those same powers, that power probably shouldn't exist, is just kind of what I keep coming back to.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Take care.
All right, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there. All right, I think we have time for one more call on the line here before we end the show for today, but we'll get to the last break and then close out the show. But don't worry, we will have, of course, tomorrow, Friday, last free-for-all Friday ahead of Election Day, and yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it there. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Yes, I wanted to point out how conservatives are like communists. They're ideologically driven people. So it's important to look at what conservatives ideologically believe, what they tend to favor irrationally or assume. And they legitimately don't want to increase the quality of life of future generations or the poor now or the future generations of poor people. They don't want to, they oppose blindly government spending and investments that create a better future for our kids. Ideologically, they oppose government spending. And because if you're poor, and let's say if your kid gets sick, they think your kid should just die and fall through the cracks. Ideologically, morally, that's what they promote and that's what they stand for. That's important to keep in mind when people go out and vote for self-identified conservatives or Republicans.
I mean, I think it's important to know what anyone on any side of the political spectrum is putting out as their actual policies here, because I doubt you're actually going to find anyone who says, yes, I'm in favor of killing those that I don't like here. And if anyone does, I have a different name for them, which would be fascist in that case here. But as much as we've had straw man conversations in the past here, I mean, I think that you keep coming back to that UMC bond specifically, and your contention is essentially that because people are opposed to it, that they are in favor of killing kids because of a lack of access here. But let me just say that priorities are also important when we look at like things such as government spending and the powers that go along with it, because if our only value here is of what will save the most lives, say that if we were to have, say we've decided that your house could be better served by having the entirety homeless population of your neighborhood move into it, that would save their lives. And yet I'm assuming you might be ever so slightly opposed to that, right, Eric?
Well, the Libre Initiative outside money funded the opposition to the UMC bond. That wasn't a local thing. There's outside conservative, ideologically driven billionaires influencing the El Paso local politics in harmful ways that go against the will of El Pasoans and the well-being of their kids.
Okay, I did ignore the question there, but more specifically then, if the people then signed on to this petition, I mean, if this was just something where it was quashed, backroom deals, and never got to see the light of day because of things being just money spent, but the fact of the matter is this went into a petition that then people in El Paso signed on to by the literally tens of thousands, and let's not also make a mistake here in saying that, well, they convinced people otherwise that were believing otherwise on this. They may have had different positions, but the amount of propaganda going out, anything like that, changed their mind. We're talking about for a lot of the fact of the matter here in El Paso, that the actual amount of people voting, I think in some ways this actually outstripped the most recent previous election. Many people just signed on to this. So the lack of political activation is also more than a little bit of an issue here in El Paso. So I think this might be kind of more of a first mover thing than anything else, that anyone who's actually reached out and tried to activate someone is finding maybe a bigger return on their effort being put into it than someone just saying, well, I hope someone shows up.
Yeah, well, the Kochs, they finance right-wing government programs that save lives in our community. And it's important that we acknowledge this outside money coming from billionaires harming our city.
All right, well, I guess, again, you're clearly in favor of it and opposed to those who are against it, but I guess we're going to continue to disagree beyond that point here, is on there calling there for everyone who is against it inherently and at their very basic level immoral, because the idea that there can be no reasonable opposition to the positions that you hold is, frankly, not a fully formed adult opinion in my mind here. So thank you for the point in the call for what it's worth, but we got to take that next break now. Coming out of this break, I'll tell you what we got coming up for you on the program here. Again, tell you a bit more about our plans for next week specifically. But and a lot more commentary coming in, but got to take that break. So coming out of this break, more of Talk El Paso, what we got coming up for you. So stay tuned here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A crash downtown I-10 eastbound at Cotton is causing a 10-minute backup to Franklin Street. The left lane is blocked there, stay to the right. In the Lower Valley, Loop 375 northbound at Pan American, a multi-vehicle crash there blocking the left shoulder with a backup to Zaragoza. Joe Battle Boulevard southbound at Edgemere, an injury accident. Slow traffic on the 54 southbound from Stan Roberts down to Kenworthy. It is a 25-minute delay. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Provember is back at Lowe's, and so are the savings. Power the possibilities with savings on the DeWalt tools you trust, like the DeWalt 16-piece reciprocating saw blade set was $29.98, now $19.98. It always pays to be a pro at Lowe's. Offer ends 12/28 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
On a busy construction site, things can be misinterpreted. Bring in the bulldozer can sound a lot like
building looks mediocre. Designs need a do-over.
or even
install a roller coaster? Okay.
be on the same page at every stage with Autodesk, from the designers to the field crew to the owner of the finished building. Autodesk Construction Cloud gives everyone clarity. Now, can we actually bring in the bulldozer?
Pamela played soccer but had trouble breathing. Our radiology team made the diagnosis and provided treatment. We are the only pediatric board-certified radiologists and experts in the region, allowing specialized procedures and treatments, reducing the need for major open surgery. Pamela is ready to score her next goal. Our pediatric radiology program sets us apart. There's only one El Paso Children's Hospital.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T.
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The patented key ingredient is something called Testofen, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text HUNK to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text HUNK to 42424. That's HUNK to 42424.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. A couple of things I want to make sure to remind you about that. Of course, tomorrow, Free for All Friday, as much as we get into stuff during the week here, we take the gloves off and delve into all of it, well, as much as we can squeeze into 2 hours of the show anyway, every Friday. So we'll be taking on all of your comments, all of the calls, all of the everything that we can. I mean, again, it's kind of like one of those Japanese train cars where they're literally shoving people in. That's what I kind of feel like what we do on Fridays is we try to cram in as much as possible. But again, that's tomorrow on the show, taking the phone calls and comments throughout both hours. And of course, coming up on Election Day, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in today's show. We'll be back tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m. is where every Monday through Friday. So in the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A multi-vehicle crash downtown, I-10 eastbound at the Cotton Street exits. Got the left lane closed and causing a backup to Prospect. I-10 eastbound is slow from the top of the state line down to Las Muchas with an 8-minute delay. Slow traffic on the 54 southbound from Stan Roberts to Kenworthy, 25-minute delays. A multi-vehicle crash is blocking the left shoulder Lower Valley on northbound Memorial Highway at Pan American. And Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Stay informed at KTSM Radio. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A New York Supreme Court judge is putting the Trump Organization under court supervision. It's all related to New York Attorney General Letitia James' $250 million lawsuit against former President Donald Trump and his business. The former president, children, and company are accused of bank and tax fraud by falsely representing property values for larger tax breaks. Paul Pelosi is being released from the hospital after he was allegedly attacked with a hammer in his San Francisco home last week. The husband of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suffered a fractured skull and serious injuries to his hands and arm. The family of Gabby Petito is suing police in Utah for $50 million over her death. Lisa